How to avoid spam likely on outbound calls. Why spam likely is suddenly a pipeline killer for B2B teams. If your SDRs keep hearing, "I didn't answer because it said spam likely," you're dealing with a trust problem, not a talk track problem. In 2024, Americans averaged roughly 14.4 robocalls per person, which works out to about 153 million robocalls per day. When prospects are trained to suspect every unknown number, legitimate outbound sales calls get caught in the same filter. That's why High is reporting that 80% of unidentified calls go unanswered should change how you run outbound. Even if your team is doing compliant B2B cold calling, one spam likely label can crater answer rates, reduce connect rates, and force reps to compensate with more volume, which often makes the problem worse. For any cold calling service's motion, caller reputation is now part of your core deliverability stack. In practice, this means sales ops and rev ops need to treat phone the way they already treat email. Monitor reputation, control sending patterns, and protect your from identity. Whether you run an in-house SDR team or an outsourced sales team, your results depend on keeping numbers trusted across carriers, devices, and analytics apps. What's really happening behind the scenes, and why good calls get mislabeled? The modern call ecosystem is defensive by design. In the first half of 2024 alone, Hire reported its network flagged nearly 20 billion calls as suspected spam, over 107 million per day. So carriers and handset-level filters are tuned to err on the side of blocking. If your outbound pattern resembles a robocall campaign, you'll get treated like one. The key thing most teams miss is that labels attach to the phone number, your DID, over time, not to one bad call. Once a number's reputation slips, future calls from that DID are more likely to show as spam likely, even if the next dial is to a perfect fit account. That's why brute force dialing from a single caller ID is one of the fastest ways to burn a number. Consumer behavior makes the feedback loop even harsher. Numeracle's research found 69% of U.S. consumers have missed or ignored an important call because they didn't trust caller ID, and 86% say they wouldn't answer a call even when caller ID is displayed if they don't trust it. When trust drops, answer rates drop, and answer rate is one of the strongest "this is spam" signals you can send. The signals that trigger spam likely and how to think about them. Most spam labeling systems don't read your intent, they read your patterns. High call velocity from one number, consistently low answer rates, lots of very short calls, spikes in dialing across geographies, and repeated attempts to invalid numbers all look like automation. If your SDR agency motion depends on scale, you have to scale with guardrails, not with raw dial counts. Answer rate is the KPI that connects everything. A low-quality list, wrong titles, wrong numbers, out-of-service lines, drives failed attempts and immediate declines, which drags answer rate down. A weak opener drives instant hang-ups, which drags call duration down. Both signals degrade reputation. This is why buying cheap lists and calling everything tends to create a double hit. Fewer conversations now and worse delivery later. Industry estimates show the business impact is real. One analysis cited in 2025 reporting suggested roughly 1 in 4 legitimate numbers has some risk of being flagged, and contact rates have dropped about 40% across industries due to labeling and blocking. If you lead a B2B sales agency or in-house team and you're not measuring number health, you're letting an invisible filter decide your pipeline. Implementation. Dialing guardrails that protect productivity without killing productivity. Start by treating phone numbers like email domains. Every DID has a reputation, and your job is to protect it. Pull a 30 to 60-day report by number that includes call volume, answer rate, average call length, and outcomes. Then flag any DID with consistently poor pickup and unusually short conversations. When a number is burned, don't force reps to suffer through it. Retire it, warm a fresh DID, and move on while remediation runs in the background. Next, fix the most common process mistake: hammering hundreds of dials from a single caller ID. There's no published universal threshold, but for typical B2B cold calling services, pushing hundreds of short unanswered calls from one DID in a day is where risk climbs fast, especially when the list isn't pristine. A safer operating model is spreading volume across a managed pool of DIDs, ramping new numbers over several days, and limiting repeat attempts to the same contact when they're clearly not engaging. Use your dialer to enforce consistency so individual rep behavior doesn't burn shared assets. The goal is to make your calling pattern look like a human sales team, steady, targeted, and relevant, rather than a bursty, robotic campaign. This is foundational, whether you run sales outsourcing internally, hire SDRs, or work with outbound sales agency partners. Your answer rate is the metric the algorithms believe most. Improve it, and spam likely stops showing up as often. Best practices that lift answer rates and send healthier engagement signals. A completely cold voice call from an unknown number in 2025 is increasingly a screened call. The simplest way to improve answer rates is to pre-warm with a coordinated sequence: email first, then LinkedIn outreach services, then a call that references the prior touch. This is the same principle that strong cold email agency programs use: create recognition before you ask for time. Branded caller ID can be a legitimate multiplier when you have enough volume to justify it. Hiya has reported an S&P 500 company saw answer rates jump 81% and contact rates 33% after enabling branded caller ID. And Hiya has also shared examples of branded calling driving a 25% answer rate versus a 4 to 6% baseline. Even if you don't go fully branded on day one, basic identity hygiene, accurate CNAM, registered numbers, consistent business naming moves you out of the mystery caller bucket. This is also where list-building services matter as much as talk tracks. When you prioritize high-fit accounts and verified numbers, prospects are more likely to recognize the outreach as relevant, stay on the line longer, and engage instead of rejecting the call. Those behaviors don't just improve meetings booked, they improve the reputation signals tied to your DIDs. Technical trust signals: stir-shaken, CNAM, and number registration. If your provider can't consistently deliver stir-shaken A-level attestation, you're starting every dial under suspicion. A attestation is the strongest signal that you're authorized to use the caller ID you're presenting. Weaker attestation, B or C, makes it easier for analytics engines to treat your traffic as untrusted. Ask your carrier or CPaaS platform what attestation level your outbound gets today and what's required to make A attestation consistent across your primary numbers. CNAM is the other avoidable foot gun. If your caller ID shows up as wireless caller, an outdated entity name, or something inconsistent across numbers, prospects won't connect it to your brand, and some will report it. Keeping CNAM clean is table stakes for B2B cold calling services, especially if you operate across multiple DIDs or have multiple teams, in-house, nearshore, or an outsourced B2B sales team. Finally, register your numbers with major analytics providers and business caller registries so your identity resolves correctly in more places. This won't magically fix reckless dialing patterns, but it can reduce false positives when your program is already disciplined. Think of registration as DNS for calling. It helps the ecosystem map your number to your business instead of treating it as an anonymous risk. Common failure modes and the fastest fixes when you're already flagged. When teams get labeled, it's usually due to a handful of repeating mistakes: blasting thousands of dials from a single DID, feeding the dialer unverified data, ignoring stir shaken and CNAM, letting reps call from personal cell numbers, and waiting until the label is visible to react. Each one pushes the same underlying metrics in the wrong direction. Answer rate down, short calls up, complaints up. Fixing the pattern, not the rep, is what changes outcomes. If a number is already showing spam likely, you can sometimes remediate it, but you shouldn't make your pipeline wait. Reports from Quality Voice and Data suggest over 95% of calls labeled spam likely go unanswered, and that properly authenticated calls can see answer rates increase more than 5x. In practical terms, that means you should pull flag DIDs out of rotation immediately, shift volume to clean numbers, and run remediation, registration, disputes, pattern changes in parallel. Compliance matters here too, even when your targets are business contacts. Poor practices create complaints, and complaints feed models. If you're not honoring opt-outs, respecting DNC rules where applicable, and running a clear opt-out process, you're increasing the odds that subscribers flag you. For any sales development agency motion, compliance isn't paperwork, it's reputation protection. Optimization. Build a weekly number health operating rhythm. Most teams only investigate caller reputation when reps start saying, "Everything is going to spam." By then, you've likely lost weeks of answer rate signal, and carriers may already be throttling or diverting your traffic. A better approach is a weekly number health review that checks answer rate, short call rate, complaint indicators, where available, and any third-party reputation dashboards you use. This is also where disciplined experimentation beats guesswork. Test small changes that improve engagement signals, tighter targeting, better first 10-second scripting, smarter call timing, and sequences that combine email, LinkedIn, and calls. Then watch how number-level answer rates respond. When your answer rate rises, your deliverability tends to rise with it, which reduces the need for extreme dial volume. Local presence dialers can help if they increase pickup, but neighbor spoofing across dozens of area codes can backfire if it drives complaints and instant declines. The safer play is a small, consistent set of local numbers tied clearly to your business identity, monitored like any other DID in your pool. That's the difference between a professional cold calling team and a pattern that looks like telemarketing spam. Next steps: what to do this week, and what to expect from an outsourced partner. If you want a practical starting point, focus on 3 actions that create immediate leverage. Audit performance by DID, not just by campaign. Confirm your stir-shaken attestation level, and implement conservative dialer guardrails that prevent single number overuse. These steps don't require a new tool stack. They require treating calling as a managed channel with rules, the same way you manage email deliverability. If you're considering sales outsourcing, ask direct questions about calling hygiene before you evaluate talk tracks or reporting dashboards. A credible cold calling agency should be able to explain how they source and warm DIDs, how they monitor number reputation, how they ensure A-level authentication where possible, and how they integrate list verification so they're not burning numbers on bad data. In our experience at SalesHive, the agencies and cold calling companies that win long-term are the ones that protect reputation as aggressively as they pursue volume. The end goal is simple: fewer wasted dials and more real conversations. When your caller identity is trusted and your outreach is relevant, you can run a modern outbound sales agency motion, calls plus email plus social, without tripping carrier defenses. That's how you keep the phone channel viable for pay-per-appointment lead generation and high-consideration B2B deals where voice still closes the gap.